It's Tuesday, the 22nd of February. Good morning, Europe. A very warm welcome to the programme. Let's start by looking at our top stories.
International condemnation and the promise of major sanctions. Western nations decry Russia's order to deploy troops to eastern Ukraine. Shock and apprehension in Kyiv as the crisis with Moscow escalates. But some residents of Donetsk celebrate Vladimir Putin's recognition of the rebel-controlled region. From Garbo's metallic corset to Brando's leather jacket, a new exhibition explores the relationship between cinema and fashion.
President Vladimir Putin has raised the stakes in the Ukraine crisis by signing decrees recognizing the independence of two breakaway separatist regions in the east of the country. The decrees include provision for Russian troops to perform what are described as peacekeeping functions in Luhansk and Donetsk. Later, Putin addressed the Russian people.
The choice of security must not pose a threat to other states. And Ukraine's accession to NATO is a direct threat to Russia's security.
Within hours, Ukrainian officials and several media reports began quoting witnesses as seeing unusually large columns of military hardware moving through the breakaway city of Donetsk. A response from Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky to Putin's actions came in a lengthy televised address.
We expect clear and effective support steps from our partners. It's very important now to see who our true friend and partner is and who will continue to scare the Russian Federation with words. We are committed to a political diplomatic settlement and not to succumb to any provocations.
Underscoring the urgency of the situation, the UN Security Council has met for a rare nighttime emergency meeting at the request of Ukraine, the US and others. Meanwhile, there's been condemnation from President Biden, who said he had signed an executive order to deny Russia the chance to profit from its blatant violations of international law. With evacuations from rebel-held Ukraine continuing, the EU, US and allies say they're launching sanction packages in a coordinated final attempt to deter Russia from a large-scale invasion.
Kyiv residents expressed shock and fear after Russian President Vladimir Putin defied Western threats of sanctions by recognizing separatist rebel regions of Ukraine and what he called a peacekeeping role for Russian troops.
I am very shocked because I have a lot of family members in the east. I am actually from Donetsk. It's my 8th year living in Kyiv, so this is the scariest news after 8 years.
I don't think badly about Russians, and I understand them perfectly. They too do not want this war.
Some residents of rebel-controlled Donetsk celebrated with fireworks, waving Russian flags and chanting "Russia, Russia." Locals came to the streets to celebrate the news.
This is what I will tell my children, which I have plenty. That's why I'm trying to remember this moment. I cannot put all of the emotions into words. I'm happy. I'm happy.
This cannot be described. These are unforgettable emotions. For 8 years, this situation was unfolding, and at last we are Donetsk People's Republic.
While recognizing the independence of the self-proclaimed so-called Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics, Vladimir Putin did not recognize the very statehood and sovereignty of Ukraine. He called it a made-up state that, according to him, quote, was entirely created by Russia, unquote. He accused Ukraine of not respecting the history and not appreciating the past. His 1-hour-long speech was full of criticism of Ukraine and of the West, particularly NATO. He accused the alliance of not respecting its promises and commitments to Russia. It has been weeks that Western leaders have been warning of a probable Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the crisis just got to its most dangerous phase yet. The recognition of the independence of the self-proclaimed territories of Ukraine would allow Russia to openly send its military forces to the areas and then try to expand the borders of those territories. The European Union reacted within minutes. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said it is a violation of the international law, the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and of the Minsk agreements, until recently, the only basis for a diplomatic solution. Sasha Vakulina, Euronews, Kyiv.
Vladimir Putin's decision to recognize Donetsk and Luhansk as independent regions is a blow to European leaders who have been trying to de-escalate the crisis in Ukraine. Now a list of proportionate sanctions is expected to be released by Brussels, as our international correspondent Annelies Borges reports.
Several European leaders have condemned in the strongest possible terms the decision by Russia's President Vladimir Putin to recognize the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic in eastern Ukraine, calling the move a blatant violation of international law and of the Minsk agreements. France, Germany and the UK have all voiced their disappointment, with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson calling the decision a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty, and France's President Emmanuel Macron calling on an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. All these leaders have been engaged in negotiations in the past few weeks, and for them, the recent uptick in violence in the Donbass region was already bad enough, and now this is a huge blow. Does it mean an all-out war is about to start? Not necessarily. Vladimir Putin has insisted there will be no annexation of these territories, at least for now. But this recognition will mean support, and that is a significant move. When asked whether or not this was the end of the road for diplomacy, Emmanuel Macron's chief advisor said neither yes or no. For now, Vladimir Putin has made a choice, according to Emmanuel Macron's team, and that choice will have consequences. There will be a meeting in Brussels this Tuesday between representatives of EU member states, and they will decide on a new list of individuals and groups that will be sanctioned. These sanctions will not be the same as the ones decided in case of a Russian incursion into Ukraine. They will be proportionate, according to diplomats. The question now is, of course, will they be enough to stop Russia on its tracks and prevent Vladimir Putin from making an even more dramatic move? Annelies Borges in Paris for Euronews.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has unveiled his living with COVID strategy, claiming it was time to act now that the peak of the Omicron variant has passed. From the 1st of April, the provision of free testing would be targeted only for the most vulnerable.
In England, we will remove all remaining domestic restrictions in law. From this Thursday, it will no longer be law to self-isolate if you test positive, and so we will also end the provision of self-isolation support payments, although statutory sick pay can still be claimed for a further month.
The move comes as the Office for National Statistics show infection figures last week estimated that only 1 in 20 people in England had COVID. While England becomes one of the first nations to abolish legal restrictions, there's a wave of partial easing of measures across Europe. In Belgium, a mask mandate is being scrapped for children between the ages of 6 and 12. While it's also going to be a mask-free return to school in Lille in northern France after the holidays. And in Bulgaria, it's been announced that the mandatory coronavirus green certificate will no longer be required for entry to restaurants, shopping malls and other public venues from mid-March. While restrictions are being lifted, many in Italy have been reflecting on the 2-year anniversary of when the country became the first outside Asia to confirm locally transmitted coronavirus infections. Since then, Italy lost more than 153,000 people.